I am Joe Van Cleve, and I am an office supply junkie. Hey, good day, everybody. Well, I'm still at it. I'm still an office supply junkie in spite of all the other stuff I'm involved in. And, you know, one of the things that is common when you're an office supply junkie is you're driving around town and you see one of those big box retail office supply stores, and you're always drawn into them. But it's also possible to find office supply stuff at the less expensive, like the dollar store, those kind of discount chain stores. But there's something even more thrifty and less expensive, which is to go to your neighborhood thrift store and look for used office supply stuff. And that's just what I did a few weeks ago. It was actually up in my part of town here, but I'd never been to this thrift store before, and I was really surprised. They had an entire aisle full of used office supply stuff. And, old notebooks and binders and things like that that may or may not be that useful. But I found a couple items here that I thought was pretty cool. Let's just get right into it. Well, first of all, this is a box of Pen Tab brand mailing envelopes, and it nominally was a 500 count box of envelopes. Now, I bought this box for maybe $1 or $2. I think they were really inexpensive, and they had a 50% off sale, so it's incredibly cheap, like less than $1, let's say, or around $1. And it's not a complete box, but it's pretty darn close. Now, what's cool about it is in the front here, you have this amount of a different kind of envelope that has the little lines on it for addressing. And it has the little kind of paisley or checkered pattern in the inside, the security envelope thing. And then all the rest of the envelopes look like the original kind. They're slightly yellowed, a little bit older looking paper. And, of course, those are just plain envelopes. But considering I paid, I'm sure it was less than $1, maybe 50 cents by the time it was all said and done. You can't go to an office supply store and get a new box, retail box of envelopes for that much. And why are envelopes so important to an office supply junkie, you might ask? Well, if you're into fountain pens, if you're into typewriters, and if you're into letter writing, if you have pen pals, this is essential. You got to have envelopes, and these are the small letter size envelopes. Now, I was thinking about this last night, and it kind of reminded me that there's something else that you can do with envelopes besides mailing letters in them. Well, one of the things you can do is, in the old days, if you were like a stamp collector, philatelist, and before they had all those fancy little plastic Ziploc baggy things for storing stamps in, all those exotic little packages for the stamp collector, a lot of people just stored stamps and little items like that of ephemera in little envelopes like this, right? So that's what you could do with an envelope. But I was reminded that my dad, back in the 1950s, probably before I was born in 57, but probably in the early 50s, about the time he got married, he was doing his own personal finances in envelopes. He would get his paycheck cashed every week, back when a lot of people got paid on a weekly basis, and they cashed their check at the grocery store. They would go buy the week's groceries and pay for it with their paycheck, and then the clerk would give them the balance of the check in cash. He had a personal bookkeeping system where he had different categories of expenditures like gasoline, food, rent, whatever it was, the utility bills. It was all in separate envelopes labeled or printed, and then he would just put money every week into each one of those, and that's how he divvied up his expenditures, and that's how he kind of had a budget going. And then he had a place where he would safely secure the envelopes. Maybe it was under the mattress or wherever, so that if someone broke in, they couldn't easily find it. So that was my dad's personal bookkeeping system. This reminds me of that. I'm not suggesting you should do that, but it is kind of cool. So envelopes have a long history. I was also looking online a couple weeks ago, and I noticed there's some really crafty people out there that have figured out how to take a letter-sized sheet of paper and fold it so that it forms its own envelope, and then you can seal it with a wax seal. And this apparently was how letters were written centuries ago in England and elsewhere. is instead of having separate envelopes, the letter itself became its own envelope. So maybe one of these days we'll do that here on this series. But for now, if you can go to a little thrift store and they have a discount aisle of used office supply stuff, man, get yourself a box of envelopes. It's really pretty handy to have around. Okay, so another item I got from the thrift store was this plastic kind of file holder that is designed to hang from a hanging file cabinet. But it has a little plastic clip. It's actually missing one of the plastic clips, but it's designed to hold loose little things like you can imagine if you're a scrapbooker, if you do scrapbooking and little clippings of newspapers and little things. Anyway, it's a little thingy that's designed to hold documents like that or little loose pieces. They asked $3. I probably got it for about $1. So that's pretty good. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a clipboard. And before I get into this clipboard, I'm obligated to drag out some of my other clipboards to show you. Okay, so I have a collection of clipboards around the house, and I think I found every one of them except there's one that I probably can't find for some reason. I don't know where it's at. Well, you know the classic clipboards are made of masonite, of course. But I have this one that's cool. This is a Saunders, and apparently there's www.saunders-usa.com. This is an aluminum clipboard, kind of legal length, and I got this at a Army-Navy surplus store. Really like it. Nice heavy-duty aluminum clipboard is pretty cool. This is an old clipboard. This is really cool. I love this one. So this is the old clipboard where you actually had to supply your own clip. Now I think when I first got this, it had one of those larger size clamshell clips, but I'm just putting on a large bulldog clip right now. But what's interesting about this clipboard, and by the way, this is made by Thompson Manufacturing Company out of Axtell, Kansas. This has a little metal spring-loaded bracket. You pull it down and then you adjust the chain in the little slot here for a certain length. And this idea is it rests on your leg, on your thigh. And it reminds me of pilots. At least when I was in the Navy pilots, the carrier pilots had what they called knee boards. A knee board was a clipboard that was really about 5 by 8, a small size clipboard that had, I think it was like Velcro straps or maybe it was elastic bands, but it would go around their thigh just above their knee when they're in a seated position. And it made a writing surface because every time the pilots would go up, they had call signs, code words, frequency list that they would have to set their transmitters to different frequencies at different times during the flight, and other notes about the mission. And so they had all this on little printed out cards on the knee board. And so knee boards, I don't have an actual naval aviator's knee board, but this kind of reminds me of a larger version of it. That, of course, a pilot wouldn't be using a big thing like this, but this is kind of cool because you can set it up at an angle. You can use it as a drawing board on a table, but you can also set it on your thigh and just out and about somewhere, and you can use it as a little writing or drawing board. And then when you want to collapse it down, you kind of pull the chain and let the spring-loaded clip relax itself, and there it is. This is a really cool old clipboard, and I like the way the corners are kind of chamfered off or whatever. And it's an older kind of masonite board. It has a patina. See the dark patina of it where it's been well used. I like to see things like that. Okay, the next two items. These are plastic clipboards made by a company called TexWipe. This one is white colored. It has a spring-loaded plastic clip. It's kind of flexible. And these are used in the semiconductor business in chip fabs, in clean rooms. They're clean room certified clipboards. They don't give off particles. Microcontamination is an issue. And here's a more translucent one, Joe's clipboard. Like that. So there's a couple plastic clipboards. This one I got last year or so from an Army-Navy surplus store here in Albuquerque. And what this one is a Fresnel lens. It's a Fresnel lens. Ooh. So the Fresnel lens is on the back side, and the border around it is raised so that if you put it on a perfectly smooth surface, it won't scratch the Fresnel lens. But of course, the problem is if you put it anywhere else, it's going to scratch the Fresnel lens because it's made of plastic. And so it scratches real easy. And the front side is just clear plastic, smooth plastic. that easily gets scuffed up with marks. But it does double as a Fresnel lens, which you could actually make this into a camera lens. But it has a nice metal clip with some little plastic hardware pieces on the corner to, I guess, protect. I guess these little plastic pieces have little ridges on it for gripping a piece of paper. But this is kind of a cool little clipboard. There you go. Magnifying glass clipboard. Okay, now we get into, this is one of my favorite clipboards because, so it has a legal size clipboard. This is made by Lapdesk. If you remember the Lapdesk company that makes the big wooden kind of kidney bean shaped lap desk that has padding, and you put it on your lap and you could put a typewriter on there and whatever. Well, they make this clipboard, and it has a nice wire clip up here, spring-loaded clip. There's a little fabric handle for hanging it, and then on the back side it has a little zippered pencil pouch and a little sleeve for slipping paper in. This is one of my favorite clipboards for writing and drawing when I'm kind of sketching and doodling ideas. This is really a fun clipboard. I do use this probably more than most of the others. Okay, and then the other clipboard that I kind of like to use a lot, this is one of these portfolio binder clipboards. So it's kind of simulated faux plasticky leather. What is it? Pleather. This one's made by Buxton. This is my most commonly used writing clipboard portfolio binder. It has a spring-loaded metal clipboard. There's a little sleeve right here for tucking your papers in. There's a little pin holder. And on the other side is a document sleeve for storing documents in. And the way I work it is I have this piece of cardboard that says the fountain pen backing board bookmarker. And what's that all about? Well, I clip pens on here and I stick it in here, and that's how I carry pens with it. If I have a fountain pen, a couple ballpoints, there's a black one and a red one for editing. Anyways, I'll typically use this when I was doing a lot of writing in composition books, I would use this to cover the paper, because I found that some of this paper, if you get the oils from your hand on the paper, sometimes fountain pen doesn't want to write very well. So this was kind of my protective thing for writing. And now lately, though, I've really been just using legal tablet, and I'll just use loose sheets of paper. But I still do the same thing. I start writing on it up here, and when I get about halfway down, I tear out the paper, and then I move it up so that my hand position is still supported by the portfolio book. But during the first part of that, I'm going to usually cover the bottom half with the cardboard so I don't get the oils on the paper, and it helps the ink to take easier on the paper. But anyway, this is a clipboard. Technically, it has a clip on it, although I don't really use it as a clipboard per se too much. And then, not to be outdone by all these manufactured clipboards, I made my own clipboard a few years ago. This didn't really turn out as good as I had hoped for, but it's essentially two pieces of wood with what is it, about 5/8 or 3/4 inch sticks glued to it and a couple hinges. And the idea was to have a self-standing, self-supporting clipboard with a large binder clip. Oh, the thing that didn't work out well about this design was this is just plywood, and the surface is a little too soft for hard ballpoint pen. If you have a single sheet of paper, you're going to feel the texture of the wood, and you might actually make little marks in the wood with a hard ballpoint pen. So it's not an ideal writing surface. And also, the angle of it is just a little too vertical. I was wanting something a little bit more like the old Masonite clipboard with the wire support on the back I showed you earlier. I wanted something, so I would really like it more to be like that. So I really need to probably shorten this. But that was my own little homemade clipboard design. Okay, all that is preparatory to, don't make too much noise here, to what I found here, which is really cool. They were asking $3, and I think I got it for $1.50. I think it was half off. This is one of these metal document holder clipboards, and it's well used. It's worn, and there's discoloration on it, but it's made of aluminum, and it has the clip on top with a little flip-up handle, so you have plenty of leverage, and there's little claw teeth, ouch, There's claw teeth on that, so it really does grip, but it has this flip out piece of metal that, and then there is also underneath it is an area for documents, to store documents inside of it. So this is kind of a document holder clipboard, which is really cool. And so the thing that I really loved about it, though, is it has the list of all the 10 codes. That's right. You remember those TV shows? 1 Atom 12. See, I'm showing my age. There was a TV series in the early 1970s, 1 Atom 12, and they had all the 10 codes. So here's one, a 1016, prisoner in custody. Oh, a 1040, mental patient. 1048, use caution. 1083, officer in trouble. And then they have the acronym list, which when I was in the military, it was Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. This is Adam Boy Charles David. A little bit different of a acronym list. And then there's more 10 codes. So 1066. I'm taking a 1066. That's a nature break. Yeah, I got to go take a leak. I got to take a 1066. 1061, lunch break. 1060. Coffee break. So I'm thinking I could take the 1060 coffee break, the 1061 lunch break, and then the 1066 nature break, and maybe the 1070 chemical spill right after that. Yeah, so anyway, there's a whole list of 10 codes here, which I thought was really cool. Now, I could have just looked these up on the internet, but the fact is that this clipboard might have been used by either a police officer or some other emergency responder, a fireman, EMT, or whatever. I don't know the history of this. There's no indication of which agency or who owned it, but it's kind of an interesting little piece, right? A clipboard. Okay, so I have my other camera set up here because I'm going to show you this. This is not a thrift store purchase. This is totally different from buying office supply stuff from thrift stores. This was called a coaxial rail pin, and this was made by Tech Accessories. And Tech Accessories is an online outfit that does, this was a crowdsourced, this was a Kickstarter project that I got myself involved in. And I've never really done this before. So this is a pen, so it's office supply. I just got it in last night, and let me show you here. So it's in a plastic baggie, of course. And so this was probably early 2018 when I got into this Kickstarter project, and they had a bunch of different colors you could get into, and they kept giving me a bunch of emails as to the status of the project, etc., etc. So it comes in this nice little cardboard sleeve, and this is the black aluminum version of the coaxial rail pen. And so you pull out the sleeve here, and so here is a little cardboard information slip. So Tech Accessories is an online company that has a lot of items that are suited toward maybe the everyday carry culture. If you guys are familiar with everyday carry, EDC, okay, so it comes in a nice little, interesting little carrying case. This is laminated with a sandwich of 2 layers of black plastic with a layer of translucent plastic in the middle. It's nicely done packaging, and let's pull this pen out, shall we? Look at nice little holder for it. So this is the brass and steel and black coaxial rail pen, and let's see how this thing works. Oh yeah. So it has the little brass actuator that you slip forward. It uses the really thin ballpoint pen cartridges, right? And there's this one is actually covered in a little plasticky, rubbery tip for protection. And then it has a nice clip on the back end of the pen to protect it, to be able to store it in a pocket. And the thing that's really cool about this pen, besides the kind of mechanical feel of it and the weight of it and the kind of the mechanical sound of its operation, the cool thing about it is it's really flat. So you could easily store this in a pocket of your pants pocket, for instance, along with a little notebook. This is a Pleasure Perfection, but there's a bunch of other little notebooks. This is an Ogami, but you can imagine all kinds of different size little pocket notebooks that you could clip this little book into and like that, and you could stick it in your pocket, into a bag, into a man bag, a purse, or whatever, cargo pants pocket. And so anyway, this is decided to get into a little Kickstarter project, a little coaxial rail pen. So I don't really know how comfortable this is actually going to be to write with. I'm thinking that you would be holding it vertically like this rather than widthwise like that, which doesn't feel very comfortable. But there is a little bit of a indentation on this brass actuator that you can put your finger, your thumb and maybe middle finger in, kind of like that. Put your index finger on top, kind of use it to write with. So I'm guessing that this design was not really optimized for ergonomics. It's obviously optimized as for everyday carry, for the flatness of it and the kind of mechanical cool factor of it, right? Very rugged and hefty. So, and as far as spare cartridges, I'm pretty sure I can get these locally at my office supply store. I don't remember the story on. Oh yeah, actually this cartridge, if I'm looking right now, it looks like it goes the length of the barrel up into here. So it may not be extra short, and I may be mistaken when I said that. So it remains to be seen. I'll have to see how these are replaced, how you replace these pens, maybe these cartridges. But anyways, it's pretty cool. Well, let's see how this pen works, shall we? Extend it, pull off the little cap thingy. Okay. Oh, it's a nice feeling ballpoint. It's a black ink cartridge. Kind of feels like a cross pen cartridge in the way it writes. It's pretty good. This is the Staples recycled sugarcane pulp paper. And actually the feel of this is better than I would have expected. I like kind of the width of the way the body of the pen lays against the side of my finger here. It's a nice beefy grip, but it's thin. Yes, and this cartridge, whatever it is, it does slide along this paper very nicely, very smooth. Actually pleasantly surprised with it. I was going to point out one little detail on this pen I didn't mention earlier, but they're using magnets. There's two recessed magnets here. Of course, brass is non-magnetic, but it has recessed magnets on both ends here, and so the magnets attract each other, and that's how it stays open or closed. Very cool. Well, according to the little card here, it says, standard D1 refill, pull to remove, push to insert. To get a grip on this, just pull it out like that. Little D1 refill, and push it back in like that. Sweet. I do love this. This is a nice little mechanically precise feeling pen. Very low profile. Well, cool. Well, little lady. I got a report of a 1039, a disturbance. It would actually be a 1039-2, a loud party.
What is this, officer? Halloween or casual Friday?
Well, I was just, practicing with this clipboard and this list of 10 codes. I guess I'll just be going on now. And it is casual Friday, actually. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day. Well, that's it for today. So, in summary, you can get office supply stuff not only at your big box retailer, not only at your discount stores like your dollar stores, etc., but you can get them at thrift stores, pennies on the dollar, used, slightly used, tenderly, lovingly cared for, maybe law enforcement clipboards with the aggressive-looking serrated teeth. I can only imagine what you could do with that with a person's finger. Anyways, and you can also get office supply stuff, custom, bespoke, Kickstarter project, maybe crowdsourced kind of office supply stuff like this tech accessory coaxial rail pen. This is Joe Van Cleve, and yes, I am a hopelessly addicted office supply junkie. Until next time, have yourselves a great day.